Visit Sailrite.com for all your project supplies, tools, and instructions.
Hi, I'm Eric Grant with Sailrite. In today's tutorial video, we're going to show you how to make a hatch cover canopy wind scoop. So this canopy goes over your hatch. You'd open up your hatch and you'll have better wind flow inside your cabin. It's fully adjustable so you can make the arch any size you want it, and it has SuperShok as the cord, which will last for years when compared to other shock cords that will not. So it has adjustability on all the cords and also the center cord for the arch, or if you want to make it flat. For this hatch canopy wind scoop, we're using SureRite fabric, which is available from Sailrite in multiple colors. Usually they're darker colors, and the webbing will be black and the thread will always be black, including the shock cord, black with gold flecks.
In this first chapter, we'll be determining the cut size for our wind scoop.
Okay, so we have a hatch cover, and I have a hatch right now that mine measures 18 inches in the width and 13 inches in the length. Width is from port to starboard. Okay, our max size for this hatch canopy wind scoop is width of 40 inches and length of 33 inches because we only supply 1 yard of fabric. So you need to remember that. Now what we need to do is we need to multiply the size of your hatch by at least 2. I like to do 2.5. So if I take 18 times 2.5, I get 45 inches, and that's my width. It's too big, so I'd have to round it down to the 40 inches. And if I take 13 times 2.5, I get 32.5. That's acceptable because it's underneath our 33-inch measurement. Now, why are we restricted on the width? Because we have 60-inch fabric. Well, that's because our Recmar Batten is only 40 inches in width. So that's good to know up front.
For our width measurement, we need to add 4.5 inches for our hems.
For the length, we need to add 3 inches for him. So mine is 35.5. So I'm going to mark this at 35.5. And then we'll draw straight lines. This is the top side of our SureRite fabric. The underside has a urethane coating. Now you probably can't see it, but I can feel that there's a urethane coating on this side. It doesn't matter if you mark on the top or the bottom for this step. So right now we have a rectangle, but we need to add hollow. So that's what we're going to do next.
In this chapter, we'll be adding hollow and cutting our fabric to size.
We need to find the middle of each of these measurements. So 21.25 is the middle, and I'll just mark it here. And then we need to find the middle of this one as well. For this one, it's 17.75 for us. Okay, at the middle position, and we also have to put the middle position over here as well. At the middle position, except for on one side, so we have the two, the lengths and the width on one side. That side we're not going to do anything with. But on these, we're going to measure in 1 inch at the middle position. So 1 inch here, 1 inch here, and 1 inch here. And that end we're going to leave straight. So a hollow is a concave portion. This is our good fabric. And I like to take the batten that's included in the kit and put it on one of the lines over here so that it intersects with the corner. And then I'm going to actually take a sandbag, because I don't have a second person, and put it on there with it upright like this so it bends nicely. And then I'm going to put it over here, and I'm just going to hold it over here to the line intersection. And then I'm going to put it on 1 inch. And I'm going to strike a hollow in this edge. And this helps to support the center of the fabric and also the sides of the fabric. Okay, so that will be our new cut line. So we're going to do it over here as well, just in the same manner. Here, it's a little bit more difficult, so I'm probably going to get a second person because this is longer than our batten by a couple inches. So let me get a helper and I'll mark this one. There's really no reason to use a hot knife because we're going to have a double hem on everything. We will use the hot knife later on to cut our webbing, but for this, no reason. So I'm going to cut on these hollows. Again, this one's straight. All the other three are hollowed.
Coming up, we'll be creating our hems on 3 sides of the wind scoop.
This is the outside surface. It doesn't have the urethane coating. I'm going to flip it so the urethane coating is up. Usually the urethane coating is a little bit shiny and you can feel it. So this is the back edge and it's got a hollow in it. We're going to start with that. I'm going to put double-sided tape. This is the double-sided tape 1/4 inch that comes in the kit along this back edge. And we're going to hem it to approximately a 1/2 inch. Now if you'd like to strike a line on the back side and fold to the line, you can, but you don't have to be exceptionally accurate with this. So we're going to peel off the transfer paper, and I'm going to guess at approximately a 1/2 inch, which looks like about like that. And we're going to fold this all the way down. I'm going to go ahead and put double-sided tape on the top of that hem that I created, and we're going to do a double hem here at the back edge. So I'll peel off the transfer paper yet again, all the way down, and it's easy to fold to the center of this because it just wants to crease right there where your last hem was. So we're going to do this on this edge. Do a double hem in the same manner on both these other hollowed edges, and then I'll show you what we do next. Now it's always a good idea before you sew to take some of the scrap, because you will have some scrap, and test with the thread that's included in the kit. The thread's going to be black and the webbing is going to be black as well, because most of the SureRite colors are darker colors. So you want to test to see that the stitch looks good, because this is a light thread. This is like a Text 70 thread, and so you want the knot a little bit on the bottom side rather than on the top side. Otherwise it'll pucker a lot, and I can see the knot just slightly on the bottom side, which is exactly what I want. So we're going to sew the 3 sides that we hemmed. The side that doesn't have the hollow hasn't been folded yet, and I've put my magnetic guide on and I moved my needle to the left. And you can see that it's really close to this folded edge. We should be about a 1/16 or an 1/8 inch away from it. And I'll do some reversing here to lock our stitch in place. And we'll just sew down this side. Now when we get to the corner, I'm going to pivot on the buried needle. These edges are hollowed. That's why you use the magnetic guide here. Okay, we're almost to the next side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bury my needle at the pivot point. Now I know that's not sewing. Sometimes what you can do is you can actually sew over it and then just reverse to the where you want to turn, which is right about there. Needle's coming up slightly, still buried. Lift my foot, pivot, lower my foot, and sew down this side. So we're going to do the same thing with all 3 sides.
Next up, we'll be creating the sleeve for our batten.
Next, we're going to put double-sided tape on the underside. This is the side with the urethane. The hems are facing up along the straight edge over here, very close to the raw edge of the fabric. Now we're going to fold this one back a 1/2 inch, but this one's also going to have a sleeve for the batten. So let's fold it to a 1/2 inch and I'll show you what's next. Now along this edge, after we're done with the 1/2 inch hem, we're going to use a clear acrylic ruler and put it on 2.5 inches from the edge, and I'm going to strike a line. We're going to fold to this line. Now this is the underside. The hems are facing up. So you can see that line, hopefully. In your kit, you're going to get a sample of black ShokLok and just take off the paper. And we want to cut this to 1.5 inches. So I'm just going to put it to the edge of my line that I struck, and you can cut this with scissors, and we're going to cut straight across here. Okay, now we're going to take this and we're going to cut it in half, because we're going to use one on one end, one on the other. Okay, so there's a shiny side and a dull side. It doesn't matter the side you have up, but I'm going to put the shiny side down, so I'm going to put the double-sided tape on the 2 edges, the 1.5 inch edges, because this should be 3 inches by, or 3 by 2.5. Okay, so now we're going to put it on, and we're going to go over the edge a little bit because there's a hollow in this. So where's our chalk line? Right there. So right like this. I don't want it to be sticking out over this, but this edge I want it to be off, and we're going to just trim off the difference here, and we're going to do the same thing on the other end. Now we're going to put double-sided tape along this front edge over top of our reinforcement. The ShokLok at the ends is going to help to reinforce the fabric from the ends of the batten, because there will be some stress on it. So we're going to break it off here, and we're going to fold to that line. I'm going to start folding over to the line in the center and work my way left and right, because when you get to the ShokLok, it's not going to want to fold as neatly because it's kind of bulky. But we're going to fold over that like that and all the way down here. Now we're going to take our batten. Oh, before I go any further, if yours is smaller, you want it to be the length up to this stitch on both sides, and you can cut it with a hacksaw. So see how I'm right at that stitch or less than that stitch. You don't want to go past that stitch. So what we want to do now is we want to sew right along this edge. Don't go too far in, otherwise your batten may not fit. If you're about 1/8 inch away from this edge, you should be fine. Okay, so that looks like about 1/8 inch from that fold, and we want to do some reversing here at the front just to make sure that it's secured well. A little bit heavy reversing, and I'm just going to use the outside of this foot just to sew that distance. If you'd like, you can put the magnetic guide on like that and sew along the edge.
In this chapter, we'll be adding webbing loops.
Okay, if I measure the front, I'm at 39 inches. I'm going to divide that by 3. So 39 divided by 3 equals 13. So I'm going to put a spot from the corner at 13 inches on the underside with the hems facing up, and then obviously one here because we're going to put a loop of webbing. And so there'll be a webbing loop here and a webbing loop here. And the webbing loop should be 24 inches, and I'm going to cut it with scissors first, and then what I do, I need to cut 2 of them, but after I cut it with scissors, then I just use the hot knife and I melt the ends to make sure that it doesn't unravel. This webbing gets sewn on here, and I usually like to keep it straight, and here, and then the second piece will be sewn on here and here. We're going to put this on so that it's flush with this edge, and we're going to sew a straight stitch basically right on top of those stitches that we had before, and we're going to do a lot of reversing here. So, okay, don't sew into your pocket. That should be plenty. I'm going to move my needle to the right, and I'm going to sew very close to this raw edge here. And you don't want to be too far in, otherwise you won't get your batten in. Let's do it. We're going to do reversing back and forth in the same manner right here. Okay. Our webbing is going to be flat, so I'm just going to make it flat all the way over here, and then it's going to go to this next loop, and we're going to sew right there, and we're going to sew close to this edge just in the same manner. I'll start at this edge since my needle's all the way in the right position. Then we'll move the needle to the left and do it here. And then we're going to do the exact same thing with the other leg of webbing in the other corner and at the other spot in the center. So I'm going to put the machine in zigzag, and I'm going to reduce the stitch length to about 3 to 4 millimeters in forward and reverse. There we go. We've cut 4-inch strips of a 1-inch webbing. I cut 4 of them, 4 inches long, and I fold them in half. And this is the bottom corner, one of the bottom corners, and it's going to go in like this, so at an angle. And we're going to sew. I'm going to sew with a zigzag. You can sew with 2 rows of a straight stitch, reversing several times too, but a zigzag is pretty fast, makes pretty fast work of this. So I'm just going to sew it right here to the bottom corner, reversing back and forth several times. And that should do it. I'm going to do 2 rows of a zigzag stitch, so one closer to the corner. So we're going to take our 4-inch length of 1-inch webbing, and we're going to fold it in half again, and the fold's going to go to the inside, and we're only going to put it on one end here, so right over top of this webbing here. I'm going to do some zigzag stitching right here, right at the end, just several times. If you do straight stitch, put a row right here and put another row right here and do reversing several times. So we're going to do zigzag. We want to do quite a bit of reversing and forwarding here because this is holding the batten in place. And that should be quite sufficient.
Next up, inserting our batten in the sleeve and then closing it up.
This end does not have the loop on it yet because we need to insert the batten. And you can cut the batten shorter if you need to. Make sure you go around the ShokLok. Yep. And start inserting it. And it needs to go all the way into that sleeve. And sometimes you can use a screwdriver to push it in, but you need to make sure it goes around the ShokLok there too. So I'm going to open this up and then someone else is going to push it in. Keep going. There we go. Yep, and I can feel the ShokLok on both sides of it. So now I'm going to push it in with a screwdriver. So it goes all the way into that pocket on the other end, up against the webbing tab. We need at least this much to sew. So my batten is too long, so I'm going to chop off a little bit because you want your presser foot to go up against this. And it's okay if the batten is a little bit smaller. Okay, we're going to take our last loop of webbing, fold it in half, and we're going to sew it on. And the batten's at least an inch away, so I'll be able to do a good stitch amount right here to close the batten up. So this batten's going to be permanently in here after we're done with this. This is thick, so go slow. So see, our presser foot is not riding on top of the batten. If it were, you'd have problems. All right, we're going to sew this thoroughly, and then I'll show you what's next.
In this chapter, we'll be installing the bungee cord and the ShokLok hardware.
This is SuperShok, which is a shock cord without all the rubber bands inside. In fact, it has a core that's elastic. It's a rubber core that's solid, and it will last as long as rope, where shock cord that has all the elastics inside typically only lasts a year or so out in the sun. So this is great stuff, and it comes in the kit. We're going to cut 2 legs to 36 inches. Now I'm going to cut it with scissors, and then I like to take the hot knife with the R blade and actually just melt the ends, because it doesn't do anything to the rubber, but it does for the polyester core, or polyester sleeve, I should say. Okay, these are ShokLok hooks that are adjustable. So we run the shock cord through this way, and then all you do is to tighten it is just go like that. So they're completely adjustable to whatever length you want. But it's a good idea to tie a figure-8 knot at the end just to keep them from coming off if they're in the water. So around like that, and then cinch it down hard. Good. Now, so if we're on the boat and it comes over here, it won't come off. So we're going to do the same thing on the corner over there. This is a ShokLok shock cord connector, and it creates a permanent eye. So what we're going to do is we're going to run the shock cord through one of the sides. Doesn't really matter which one. Then we're going to go through the eye at the corner. This is the bottom corner. And then we'll go through here like such. Okay, so now let's start with this one. So I'm going to hold this snug, and then I'm going to lift this up to create a loop. Then I'm going to take one of these, and you can see this side is supposed to have the rope up to it, and this side's flat. The flat side goes in like this. And you need it to be slightly canted like it is, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull on this side, and it'll snap into place, watch. Like that. Okay, so now we have that one done, and I'm going to create the eye size that I want, right about there, and I'm going to hold this side, and I'm going to push this through so that it creates a loop in the same manner, and then insert it in, And as long as it's slightly canted, like it is, like that, see how it's at a 45-degree angle? Then I'm going to pull on this, and there we go, permanent eye. They will not come loose. I'm going to flip the wind scoop canopy over to the underside. The hems are facing up, and then we're going to take more of our SuperShok and melt the ends, just the sleeve. You don't have to melt the rubber, so just around the edge, like that. I've got a length of a SuperShok that is at least double the width of this. It's a little bit longer, and I'm going to insert it into the webbing here and let it hang there, and then insert it into the webbing here at the front corner. This is our ShokLok adjustable extender, and I'm going to insert it in here so it could lock like that. I'm going to tie a figure 8 here, and I'm going to also insert it in here and tie a figure 8 there. So with it fully released like this, it sits basically flat. But if you want to arch it for a good scoop, you just do this, and these things are awesome because you can adjust it to whatever you want here, and you've got a arch, or if you go tighter, and obviously you'd have even more arch. Pretty cool. With the remainder of the SuperShok, we're going to obviously heat the ends, and we're going to put this in one of these hooks. You get 4 hooks, and we're going to do a figure 8 here, and then we're going to put this one in and do a figure 8 here. And you do get 25 feet of the SuperShok in the kit, so hopefully you have enough for your whole rig. You may want to plan it out if you think you're going to be short, or either order more at Sailrite, but 25 feet should be enough. This is going to go around the furled sail or in another attachment point.
In this final chapter, we'll be installing our wind scoop on the boat.
All right, so there's our hatch, and here's our canopy. Pretty easy. Just come back of the hatch and attach it to something like this tow rail, and we'll do it over here. All right, we obviously need to tighten them up, but it's a simple task of doing that. I'll tighten this one up a little bit. This would go around the furled sail, and you can just have it loop around like that, or you can actually loop it around completely like that if you'd like. So we don't have a furled sail, all we have is the furling track, but I think that's going to work fine. So there, we could do it like that, or you could wrap it around one more time. Let's just do it one more time since I don't have a sail, like that. Then we're going to come down here and attach it here and here and make adjustments. Okay, now to make this arch, you just do this until you get the pleasing arch that you want, whether it be like that. If you want to lower it, just lower this down, and there's your wind scoop.
Our adjustable wind scoop is now complete, and it looks great. Be sure to order your hatch cover wind scoop today at Sailrite.com. For a complete list of the tools and materials we use to complete this project, take a look at the description below. And be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified when new videos become available from our channel. I'm Seth Grant, and from all of us here at Sailrite, thanks for watching.